Hi, Spencer.
Hi, Sen. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Slightly unusual having earpieces in and doing this from home, but yeah, all good.
Yeah, so I wanted to get you on here to discuss a topic that we touched on a few times over the last few weeks within the company, and particularly in our senior management huddles, and that is stress. Now, I know you've got quite a few tips around this and some nuggets, hence why I thought I'd get you on here and ask you some more detailed questions, which I think could be quite beneficial to a lot of people, especially as a lot of businesses right now, and business leaders in particular, are probably either having to deal with their own stress or that of their employees at the moment. So I think it's quite timely. So thanks again for agreeing to do this with me. And I'm going to jump straight into my first question, which is obviously stress, it's subjective, right? The definition of that varies from person to person. But what does it mean to you in particular? How would you define it? And from your own experience, so to say?
Well, for me, I think my definition of stress is when I'm not working, it stops me working, or I'm not working as efficiently as I should be, because for whatever reason, I'm starting to slow down, whether it's mentally or whatever. And I generally rank that. I've got my little scale of 1 to 100. 1 being I'm not stressed at all, and I've never been to 100, so I'm not sure what happens when I get there. But 75 is for me in my head my mental breaking point. So I try and keep below 75% of my stress levels. And for me, it doesn't really matter what the event is that happens. It's where you are on that scale that is important. So if last week I spilt my water on my desk and it went over a load of paperwork, that might be a 2% stress, in the grand scheme of things. If I'm at 10% level, it doesn't really make a big difference to my life. But if I'm at 74%, that can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So it can send me over the edge. So for me, it's more important as to where you are on the scale than to the actual event that's taking place.
That's really interesting in terms of the way that you define that scale. And how do you know where you're at? Do you have certain triggers or certain things that happen where you're like, oh, that's a 50% or that's a 20% or something like that?
No, not really. It's more, I think I've got an awareness of where I am on the scale. So again, it doesn't matter if it's a 2%, a 10%, a 50% or whatever. If I'm below that threshold, so if a 50%, everyone on a Sunday afternoon suddenly gets told we're all working from home and we've never done that as a company before. Big stress in my life that was, to make sure that all went as efficiently as possible. That could have been a 50% event, but if I was at 10%, it still keeps me under that 75%. So the size of the event, I don't really measure too much. What I am very aware of is when I'm getting close to that 75%, I can feel myself becoming less efficient, and I become aware of it. And that's when I know I've got to start making some changes.
Interesting. So under normal circumstances, and by that I mean not the current situation and just day to day, say for example, a month ago, how would you usually deal with work-related stress? I mean, do you take things home? How do you do that? What do you do with that stress?
Well, for me, I personally, I don't really look at things in terms of work and business, or that work-life balance people talk about, because I absolutely love what I do. It's my hobby. I see it as a hobby, not a job. That's why I set the business up, because I love doing it. So it's not about having that balance. I remember having a conversation with a good friend of mine once, and he was saying, we were talking about work, and he was saying he didn't want on his gravestone that he wished he'd worked harder. Now, I didn't say it to him, but I was just sitting there thinking, well, you're a cyclist. You go out cycling every weekend to relax and enjoy yourself. I don't want on my gravestone that every weekend I dress up in lycra and go out cycling, because it's not my hobby. My hobby is to work. So I wake up at 5:15. First thing I do is check my emails. I go to bed between 10 and 11, and the last thing I do is check my emails. And that's literally constant. In between that, I'm pretty much working the whole time, whether I'm at home, whether I'm in the office, whether I'm on holiday. So the work-life balance isn't the important thing for me. The important thing is, are you doing what you enjoy, and do you recognize when you're getting stressed, whether it's because I've got spilt water on my desk because I've got to send the whole company home to work from home, or because one of my kids has just done something that's made me a bit stressed at home. It's all the same thing. I've got to recognize whatever those levels are and stay below them. I think the important thing is really how you deal with that, and it's, for me, having a routine. If I'm in a routine, I can manage what I'm doing. So I don't want to be doing stuff that I don't enjoy. So I have a 5-year plan for the business, as we all know, to become the go-to place for healthcare professionals in 2025. But I work that backwards. So I've got 1-year plans, I've got quarterly plans, I've got monthly plans, I've got weekly plans. And throughout all of those plans, I'm looking at what do I enjoy doing and what don't I enjoy doing? And if I'm not going to enjoy doing it, let's get someone else to do it. Let's delegate that to someone else, so that it's not going to stress me. If there are any of those things that I can't delegate, which there sometimes are, it's then remembering, okay, what do I do that can bring my percentage level down from 75%? And that's things like exercise, it's listening or reading to inspiring books by other business owners, or stuff where I'm going to learn new stuff. It's watching inspiring TV, maybe it's listening to upbeat music, always gets me up when I'm feeling down. Or if worst comes to worst, go for a beer with a couple of your mates, but make sure they're the positive mates that are going to lift you up, and because you become the sum of the average you surround yourself by. So if you're surrounded by a load of positive people, you're going to feel better for it.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to go back to the point that you made earlier about being home, and there is no difference for you because work is your hobby. That's different at the moment, right? Because people are suddenly working at home and there is no work-life balance to be found because we don't have a life. We don't really have anything to do and go out and do things. But what is it like for you with this current situation when it comes to stress? Do you find you're more stressed, less stressed? Is it different? Is it the same? What does that look like for you right now?
Good question. I'm definitely more stressed at the moment, without a doubt. And I think it goes back to my previous point about my routine has suddenly completely changed. I don't have my normal routine, and therefore I've not been able to plan as well as I would normally because I wasn't sure what was happening. So you've got to react. And as soon as you do that, you go outside your comfort zone, and you haven't got that reference point to know this is what happens in this situation. Have I got a reference point to tell me what happens when the office gets shut down because of Covid-19? No, because it's never happened before. So we're pushed outside of our comfort zone. So things like that certainly increase your stress levels. And then the fact that we're trying to change to the new environment. We're launching new products. We've got our Covid-19 website that we've launched. We're speaking to more clients on a regular basis to make sure that we can help them in every way possible. I've gone from getting about 150 emails a day to getting close to or over 300 emails a day. I'm filming videos like this that are really outside my comfort zone. I don't enjoy doing this sort of stuff. So you've got to do it. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes, because you suddenly start getting those reference points and you get back into your comfort zone. But the one thing I think probably more than anything that I'm finding hard at the moment is just that interaction with other people. When you would normally walk around the office and have a chat and say hello and do this and do that, you just can't do that. So having video calls like this is great, but it's that interaction that I think really increases the stress for most people.
I agree. But so the type of stress that you face on a day-to-day basis is probably very different to the type of stress that I would deal with on a day-to-day basis, because you run a business, right? And especially at times like this, there are multiple things that you have to deal with ad hoc, and I'm sure that your priorities change hour to hour, day by day. But do you agree with the fact that the type of stress that a business owner like yourself faces is quite different to people like myself who are just employees of yours?
Of course it's different, but I think everyone's stress is different. There are no two things the same. Just like we talk about with our values, you've got your values and they're right for you. I've got my values and they're right for me. They might be completely different, or they might be very similar. But whether you're a business owner, whether it's your first day in the job, what stresses you out stresses you out. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And I think the key thing is how you deal with it is the more important thing, and recognizing that you're at a level that you're getting close to breaking point. Now, I spoke about a minute ago, not feeling comfortable doing public speaking and videos. Now, I've been doing them every day for the company for the last 2.5, 3 weeks now. And on day one, I was trying to make sure absolutely everything was perfect. And if anything went slightly wrong, I was re-recording. I was doing 10, 20, 30 takes. Yeah. It was so frustrating. Whereas now, I can see out the corner of my eye, my daughter's playing tennis against the wall, and that would really have bugged me 2 weeks ago, because I'd be worrying that you could hear it and she was going to scream or do something. But your frame of reference gets broader, so you know that actually if it happens, it happens. Everyone's in the same boat, so you get back into that comfort zone. So I think it doesn't matter who you are at the moment. It's just, if you're stressed, you're stressed. If you're not, you're not. And if you're getting somewhere close to it, it's how you manage it is the important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to mindset in particular, what advice would you give to other senior leaders or business owners within various other organizations when it comes to dealing with stress right now with these circumstances?
Again, I think this is important information or relevant information for anyone, whether you're a business owner or not. But I think it's just having that positive mindset. You know, we were talking about the Walt Disney quote the other day, in terms of, have you got a yes if attitude rather than a no because attitude. So look at everything with that positivity, that we can make it happen if we can do this, that, or the other, and surround yourself by positive people, because they'll help you with that. And it's just trying to look at the positive on everything. So there's going to be some really bad stuff that happens over the next weeks, months, and potentially years. But you can spin it in a positive way if you want, and it's hard to do that at the time. Yeah. But in the long run, you will definitely take the positives out of it if you have that mindset. So I'm talking to business owners on a regular basis, and I'm hearing them making people redundant, even potentially closing their businesses down, and that's a really tough thing to try and find any positives in. But what I look at is, if you've been through that, you can learn from that. So next time, and there will be a next time, you'll be able to deal with it in a better way. So I've owned businesses before, and I learned stuff that was good and that was bad. And so when I set up EMG, I tried not to do any of the stuff that was bad and tried to do a hell of a lot more of the stuff that was good. So at the time, going through those bad experiences with those other businesses, I didn't see any positivity in it at all. But looking back, I can now see that what I learned from that gave me that broader reference point, so that I can use that in a positive way now. You've got to use it as a learning opportunity.
Absolutely. So positivity really is the main kind of takeaway from that. And what about individuals who perhaps aren't leaders and quite early on in their careers, maybe they've just joined an organization and all of this suddenly happened? What advice would you give to them when it comes to dealing with stress at the moment? Is it different to what you just said? Is it the same thing?
I think it's exactly the same. It's as I said a minute ago, it doesn't matter who you are, everyone has got stresses, and it's how you deal with the stresses that's the important thing. I think that the only potential difference is, if it's your first day in a business, you're going to have less experience than if you've been in a business for 20 years. And that experience can help you, because you'll have dealt with more things, so you'll be in your comfort zone a lot more, potentially. So the only advice I would give to someone that's early on in their careers is don't be afraid to ask, because you've got two ways you can learn this stuff. One is you can live and get your own experiences, and that can take you 20 years. That's not a really efficient way of doing it. Or two is you can just go and ask someone that's lived for 20 years and had those experiences and learn from them, which is a much more efficient way of doing it. And on the plus side, if you do that, if you ask me a question because you're not sure about something and I can help you, I feel really good about it as well. So you're feeling good because you've just learned something and you're not stressed about it anymore. And I feel good because I've just helped you. So it's a win-win. So for me, it's just go and ask for help.
Brilliant advice. Thanks again for joining me on here today, Spencer. Hopefully some people watching this will have taken something away, or something that they've already known, but kind of reiterating it again always helps. Everyone, doesn't do any harm. There are a few other topics I'm going to want to pick your brain on soon, so I may have to force you to get out of your comfort zone and do this again. So if anyone watching this has any suggestions or would like to learn anything in particular from Spencer directly, just get in touch and we can try our best to make something happen and discuss those. But that's it for now. Thanks again for joining me, Spencer.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks, Em. Bye.